give word to our first speaker, who will be Kalle from Eficode Finland. You have your own microphone. Good.
Yeah, have both. Yeah, so I guess I'll take over. Thank you, Richard. So, let's see, it works. What was I supposed to do this one? Or are we skipping?
No, I guess we're skipping that one because we have so many people.
Yeah, so I'm Kalle Sirkesalo. I work as the CTO of Managed Services here in Eficode, and I just got out of a small AI case in the USA where we automated dependency management in Java code, where we automated 500 repositories to get different kind of dependencies automatically updated. We didn't succeed fully, but like 20% of the repos are now fully automatically updating certain dependencies. I'm going to be talking about how to get started with AI and Atlassian, and what do you need to do, and what can you do to get there. And later today, my colleague Magnus and Philip from Atlassian is going to talk about Rovo in detail. So I know quite a lot, but I'm also supposed to be the first talker, so I'm going to make sure that we know about AI in general. How many of you are using AI at the moment? Okay, almost everybody. How many of you are using AI agents at the moment? Okay, so that's probably quite a lot. So yeah, AI is a massive opportunity, as we've all seen, and every manager wants AI everywhere. They want AI to solve everything and remove us humans and get the maximum profits, as we've seen. Well, it hasn't really gone that way, because like most of the organizations haven't really been able to get to the right side of the thing where you find the opportunity. We've actually found that like most organizations are not really capable of getting to the AI train. Like we're seeing a lot of policy, security, data problems. The very same that have blocked every transformation in most of our organizations. And then the big problem has been, how do you integrate AI into your workflows? Like, how do we actually find where does it suit? What's the use case? Where do I start placing AI? And how do I solve it? And when you get AI into some workflow already, like when you're prompting, like almost every one of you were already using some kind of AI tool for prompts, we can start seeing that most organizations, after getting to AI, they start creating AI agents. So they start finding out how do you automate these prompts, how do you automate these things, because nobody wants to go into the ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot and ask it a thing if it can automatically generate a document based on that. If you have to do a report every month and it's based on Copilot data, why would you go into Copilot and get that data? If you have to do automatic like answer to a customer's email, why would you have to get that email, give it to Copilot and ask it to do that? Okay, both are simple things, but like again, the question is why would we spend time on prompting if we can automate these processes? That's why we see a high number of people starting to use AI agents. We're also seeing a significant advantage on anybody who is actually using agentic mode. So there was a British study just yesterday released about how the government took into use Office 365 Copilot and failed spectacularly. 300 people using it on the statistics, and they found like 1.5 hours of savings in a month. Not great. But at the same time, like if you're not actually implementing it into your workflow, if you're not actually automating with it, it's just an assistant. An assistant helps you bit by bit every day in small tasks, but it doesn't really automate the work. You're still needed, and you still need to do most of the work yourself. Then you need to also verify the results, and if you don't create all of the things needed, it's going to get stuck. And most of the executives see that one Gen AI use case can't be automated, and when they do that, they can find those problems and start creating. So I'm not going to go more, but I can link you to the study if you're interested. Why all of these numbers are important is this an exponential curve? And I would ask the university people not to answer this. You know what this looks like. So, how many of you think this is an exponential curve? Okay, nobody. Then this doesn't really work. Yeah, this is not. This is like something where you just bit by bit see progress. So what exponential looks like is over here is when LLMs came out, and that's where they were last May, I think. So they've already passed almost every other open source library that we've been developing in software. And that's in 2 years, or depending on how you take it, 2 to 4 years. So that's exponential change in the ways we're working in IT. And that's where we're starting to see the changes happening. And that's why, for example, you see Atlassian implementing Rovo. So we can actually take use of all this thing that is happening, automate things smarter, and create more possibilities. I know Marcus is going to talk about how do you create ITSM agents and Robo agents, and like how do you create that into the service desk flows. And that enables you to actually start using outside sources, for example, to answering quicker into a service desk request. How many of you were in a holiday and forgot the password of your laptop? Yeah. It took me 3 hours to get an IT person to give me a password recovery link. It wasn't great. If it was automated, they could have been faster. The problem was I started at 6 a.m., the guy started at 9, so of course 3 hours, but like, life is such but these are the things that we're struggling, and I had a really good holiday. So what's actually stopping people at the moment? So we're seeing a big thing where job displacement, like that fear is actual. Like when we're talking to organizations, when we're doing workshops with the people, I have a German customer that had to go into the, what is it called? The board of employees or the union of the employees, and they had to get an approval of getting into using AI, because otherwise they had to promise that they will not lay off anybody because of AI for the next 10 years or something like that, to get a permission to use GitHub Copilot. So it's a real fear that we have, but at the same time, like, we've seen multitude of these transformations. World Wide Web was supposed to remove everybody's jobs. Industrialization was supposed to remove every one of our jobs. We're gonna just invent new things to do and break. We're humans, we're really good at breaking things. The other thing is, who owns these things? Like, when we create an AI workflow, if someone creates it on their own laptop, who actually owns this thing? It's a super difficult question. Like, if I create this agent and it helps me on my work, should I give it to everybody else? But then I need to update, give it to them. How am I going to do it? Who actually owns this AI development? Who is supposed to do this? Who is funding it? These questions are the usual difficult questions of innovation, and always very gray line across organizations. Security and compliance. We're in Switzerland especially, so this is probably most of your mind. How do I make sure it doesn't leak all my data? How do I make sure that it leaves an access block mentioned? How do I make sure that it is doing the correct thing? How do I make sure that it isn't doing something negative to our company? Well, you really can't, so you need to build guardrails around AI. We're going to talk about that a bit, but not too much today. But if you're interested, we are happy to talk about it. And then the business case. If you don't really know what this is going to do, the technology is less than 4 years old, and you're asking, show me how much it affected other people, show me how much you're promising me returns. It's quite hard to tell if it's case by case at the moment, and everybody's still figuring it out. And it's the same for your management. So they're like, okay, I want to invest in AI, I know it's going to be beneficial, but I don't get the business cases that I usually would, where we have like 10 years of history of these cases happening. So why we want to invest in AI is because of the unlimited thing. If we can find in the market the opportunity, and if we can implement something in 5 minutes, it's an example of the maximum of things. That imagine if you can do 2 weeks of work in 5 minutes. That's ridiculous amount of speed up. Like, let's take that becomes 50 minutes, 10 times worse. It's still a lot. Let's say that we remove 1 day out of the sprint, so we can do it in 9 days now. We still get over 2 weeks of work at the end of the year. It's ridiculous how much, by improving those processes and value streams we create, we can find opportunities of being better. How many of you have seen the XKCD comic where it's saying from the programmers it's building? Okay, not that kind of problem. So that's the thing, like, we have all these small blockers in our lives that we use as a reason to go coffee break, which is good. You need coffee breaks and you need breaks to innovate. But at the same time, we have these things where we're just stuck on something for a period of time and we need somebody to talk to. And AI can solve it by just being there and being able to talk. Like, I have had multiple conversations with AI of it being a product to me, and I'm just like, oh, I actually solved it now. Just helps when you have someone to talk to. So now talking a bit about what should it look like when you start creating those business cases and where do you actually get started. So based on our current understanding, the phase one is the assistant. So almost every one of you raised the hand and said that, like, you are chatting with AI, you have ChatGPT and so on in use. You're probably going to see about 1.2 times the speed in programming maximum. It's not going to go really above that. Then we start creating these agents. So in GitHub Copilot, if you're a programmer, in Rovo you have these agents and so on. These are automated workflows. So it's you giving a permission for that LLM to do something for you. It's you automating up the task or you pushing it forward. That allows it to usually be like 2 times faster because it's no longer requiring your input. It's no longer requiring you to start on it. It still requires you to review it, and that takes time, which slows you down. So that's why we started looking at autonomous agents as the next thing, where you start putting agent after agent. So you have an agent that does the thing, and then you have another agent that goes in and starts complaining to the other agent that, hey, this is bad. We can't accept this. Like, no, this doesn't build this quality criteria. And you pay them in Dupons and you tell them, hey, your job is now to find issues in this guy's code. And every time you find an issue, you get a Dupon. And the other guy, you tell it, hey, you get a Dupon if you don't find any issues. And you get them to fight each other, and then it creates better software. Real cases, real things. Most organizations are stepping from over here, the assistants, to agents. And top performers are starting to see autonomous agents. And the white coders are over here in the software factory. I'm not going to say that they're good at it. I'm saying that they can do 20 times the work in 5 minutes. The question is it any good and are they getting hacked? Yes, but they're also showing us the way that, like, if we could create guardrails, if we can create these things, we're going to start seeing really big impacts. And I don't know if anybody has done a software with AI and, like, just prompting and telling it, hey, now I have a software in front of me. I don't know what it does at all. Let's go live with it. And I've done that. Yeah, why not? Like, it wasn't anything critical. It was I was getting lunch menu from their neighbor's base. Like, I had to get all of the lunch menus from different bases, and the current website wasn't working. It wasn't working. I wouldn't go for work. So the next thing is, how does this look like in Atlassian ecosystem? So assistants, prompts. If you're using the Rovo chat, you find yourself in prompt states. If you're using the Rovo Studio, an agent, you're finding yourself starting to step into the agentic roles and starting to automate tasks. You can implement them into automation of Jira. You can implement them into Confluence automations. And then you have the agent to agent, where you start putting another agent talking to the Rovo agent. This is when you start pulling out, like, Forge APIs and Comparable, and you have to start programming at the moment. The next 2 are still work in progress, I would say. Maybe Team 25 Era will tell us more. I heard some rumors that it's going to be great. You might want to talk to Philip about it. Just wink. But yeah, so this is like the next step where we start seeing capability of telling the agent to talk to another agent and getting responses based on that. I added this because we're going to send you the slides. I'm not going to read most of it, but this is like explaining all of the details and nitty-gritty critics on why you would see these things. So I think I know someone's going to come in and ask me about it, so now it's in the slides that you get. So that's all great and fantastic, but how does it relate to any way about how do I get started? Kalle, you said that you're going to get started on me. Your pitch was, how do I actually get started? So what we found is, and I just wrote a thesis about this from my MBA, that you have to start by enabling people and innovation processes. So you still need to do all the old school stuff of like looking at the innovation process, looking at the people and capabilities, and combining those two into your workflows. So most of the time we see people doing a Gen AI hackathon for the development side. So you bring in the people and you make sure that they're actually like learning what are these tools, how do they work, and feeling kind of relaxed about the tools, and then also having someone there just answering security questions. What can I use? How does this work? What can't I put there in our organization? On the other side, you start doing a lot value stream life cycles. And what that means is we do a value stream workshop with the customer, or customer does it themselves if you have a capable people here. We see where could we place AI here? Like what are the bottlenecks in our process at the moment? Same as you all have done probably with Jira workflows. How many of you have actually value stream map Jira workflow so that you can actually see where is the bottleneck and what do we want to remove? Okay, few people. So that's a good tool, I'm going to talk about it in a bit, to find like, oh, why are we doing this handover? Couldn't we just automate it or could we skip it? It's like, this doesn't really create value in this process. Sometimes the value is by having a control in place, that's fine. Then after those two, you should have a backlog of big ideas, like this is what we could do with AI. You can go to management and get those people talking together and create you a brief backlog of all of these things that we want. And then you can put them into a priority matrix and find the 4 things, for example, that you want to get started. And get small investment on it. So that's how you actually get started on things, by solving real life problems. So first, we do Gen AI workshop, getting familiar, learning about LLMs and Gen AI, like understanding this is how you prompt. I know most of you are doing that in it already, but like, it's again, removing that fear, because we were talking at the beginning, that fear is big thing. Getting people to feel comfortable, hey, this is actually work. I'm actually still working, and this is still needing me for work. And it's about getting people into a comfortable place that they feel innovative. It's like I don't know how many of you have done MBAs, but like in there you learn about innovation. You have to do some innovation courses, and it's all about like, okay, you need to get everybody comfortable first, and then they can actually start innovating. Because otherwise it's like, oh, I'm not thinking about the other side of the map because I'm constantly working on the current work that I'm doing. The second day, we usually produce those solutions. So first day we try to get people to innovate and think about ideas. And second day we try to do a small POCs with the customers. So we would take a Rovo and we would automate with it some workflows that we found, hey, we could actually do this. Trying to utilize that day 1 to do day 2 with the technical people or people related. On the other side, with the management, we start going towards value stream mapping. And value stream mapping is kind of looking for waterfall. So it's about you starting from a starting point like a request for development and ending with getting to production, for example, in this case. And it has all of the steps that go into it and different teams that have to touch it. And because it's waterfall, we can actually like put the starting points everywhere. But then when we go into that, so it starts looking like this. And this is a complex one, but real life value streams that we've seen. So all of a sudden it's like, okay, where is the starting point? Like, where do we actually like start and where is the value being generated? And it gets really difficult to find that in these kind of things. But when you have it in a map, you can start finding that, okay, maybe it's over here that like we start seeing like all creation of the value. What we usually do is try to make it a bit simpler. So trying to find, okay, we have customers going into Excel sheets. Yep. That Excel sheet gets converted by the product manager into topics that we need to develop, that then get thrown into the development team. And then the development team keeps grinding away until it's in production. The red boxes are manual steps. So those would be the perfect places to implement AI, for example. Can we remove these red boxes and integrate these two together somehow? And we make this box faster. Because every time you have a red box, it slows down the thing. Every time you go outside of this box, it slows down the thing because it's a handover. Can we implement that to the team also? And all of this enables you finding those use cases. Anybody done this kind of an exercise? Now you know what value stream mapping is. And now hands, expect the hands to start reprising. This enables finding those business cases. And the key thing is, we created value in 2 boxes here. And the rest is there for corporate control, security, things that we relate to and we have to do. But at the same time, we don't have to keep doing it the same way as we used to do it. Right? We can always improve on the process. So then after that, you go to the management, and you have to give them an agenda. So here's an example agenda. Just if you want anybody decision maker with the money coming into the meeting, you need an agenda. So you first tell them, okay, this is the value stream. This is where the problems were found. These were the insights that we found when we were innovating with the people. This is what they want to improve on. Then we want to tell them about the key learnings that we had. This doesn't work, or this will probably work. This is where we want to go. And then we want to show them some kind of ROI analysis or work with them on that. What would you need for the ROI? What would you need for the risk and scalability of this? How can we take this forward? And then we plan who is actually executing this and who is owning this and who gets the okay on using money. And usually after this, we get clear investment because most of the time management has a need to invest on this, but no manager wants to go in blind and tell you, hey, here's $500,000, figure out what to do. They want an actual plan, and this way we can actually get them to also buy in and start moving towards. And this is what it looks like in real life. This is from our own backlog. So I broke it down by our OKRs at the top, and then I broke down the different innovations. We put them in the prioritization matrix, and anything outside of like, everything over here is really critical, and everything over here is we will never do it. And we found a few ideas that we would be doing. So for us, it's like MCPs as a service. We do that nowadays. Agents, how do we support agents in our services? How do we make sure that agents are in use? And if customer has an agent, they get support on it. And then we had things like AI-driven work estimation. So stuff that we're building on Rovo. Ticket comes in, AI goes in and starts analyzing, okay, this is how much I would expect the estimation to be, or there's not enough information here for estimation. Here's a work breakdown I can do, but we're expecting more. So allowing us to start looking at these things as a managed investment in the company. So I had demo of Rovo here, but we started a bit late, so I'm going to keep going so you have time to question me a lot, and I can do a demo if you don't have any questions. So the next question is, so what is AI? It's like, now I've talked about all these kind of things that like, oh, we have like all these things and you're prompting it and we're automating it. So what can this actually do? Because AI is really stupid. It's mathematics, but if anybody remembers mathematics from school, it's that. It's only mathematics, what the LLMs are doing. The Gen AI that we're using is a big matrix that we created with hardware. We had a bunch of hardware and we told it, here's a matrix that you create and do vector mathematics inside of it. That's all the magic that we talk about. There is a bunch of other things going into getting that far, but that's simplified to a human level. What LLMs are not is the first one. So it's not a supervised learning. So you can't say, hey, predict when an accident will happen, because it doesn't know. That's not the data set that we gave it. That's not the model we're using in LLMs. It doesn't know that because we're not actually giving it supervised learning material. We're giving it a bunch of random data, and it learns from that whatever it learns. What it can tell is, when can I go to work and what time should I leave? There's no stat from the traffic data. It doesn't know when an accident will happen because it's not predicting that. So that's critical to understand. If you want the supervised learning, use some other AI models. We have a bunch of different other models. I know there is one guy here doing diffusion, for example, for work. So that's a different way of approaching this thing. There is a bunch of other ones that you can do to predict, like the whole anomaly detection. You don't do that with LLM. You do it with anomaly mathematics and anomaly detection logics. But if you go to unsupervised, what this means is it's unpredictable. We don't know what's the end result. So you probably tried this where you prompt the AI and then you prompt it again with the same question and it gives you two different answers. How many have done that? Yeah. Because that's why it's not supervised learning. If it's supervised learning, it always gives you the same answer. You know, unsupervised, it always gives you a different answer based on how did it reach the end result. Then I need to talk about tokens, because this is what gets thrown around everywhere, and you will hear about it everywhere. Tokens, what are they? It's words. Simple. When you hear like we have 1 million input tokens, it means we have 1 million words we can give to the AI model. Simplified term. You can combine them and you can remove things from here, which we've been doing, but that's short-lived. Connecting it to Rovo. Rovo is not using the word token in sense. It's coming there and it's in the developer tokens and so on. You'll hear about it also in future. But how it affects you is that there is this thing called AI Atlassian Rovo token credits. It's not active at the moment if I remember correctly. Philip can fix it if I'm wrong. But basically when you start using the deep research, for example, it spends a certain amount of credits every time. Or if you have indexed objects, like you're bringing in your SharePoint to Rovo, it uses a certain amount of index tokens or quotas. And you get them based on the user amount that you have. And I added a chart so you can actually check things out if you're interested. So how do we actually find those things in the matrix? Is by embedding. So closer it is to 1 is better, the farther it is from a 1, the worse. And maximum is worst is -1, best is 1. And the big thing here is that it doesn't actually know that cat and a kitten are connected, but it can find them by embedding mathematics. They're near each other, so they need to be the same thing. Man, woman, they're kind of linked, same as king and queen. So you can find these in the mathematics and be like, okay, so king is kind of like a man. So what's related to man? Okay, can I connect that to the king again? So that's how it starts thinking about things. So that's how AI finds the answer to you, shortly. We are embedded, and then we do a bunch of other things. So then today, AI agents getting complicated. So now you have all these agents. I mentioned already like 10 different tools during this talk. We're here to talk about Rovo, but like it's good to understand that Atlassian is a small part of your whole IP. It's a big part hopefully in long term, but like it's Jira, Confluence, and all the other stuff. And all of it requires controls around it. And all of it requires you to start thinking, okay, how do we actually take care of these? And what do we actually get from each AI vendor, and where are we going with these? For example, the agent logic is over there, but you have to start thinking about, okay, can I get conversational UI with Rovo? Yes, I can. Okay, so Rovo will build the conversational UI, and it also has an API I can talk to. It also has a UI where I can like automate things. Okay, so I can find those in interfaces. Rovo also has an agent catalog. It also has templates, so I can easily create more agents. And I can also create registries of different agents and their use cases. Or I can also find security stuff like monitoring logs from one place. Okay, then the question becomes, how do I actually do this across the organization? And then I don't have answers to that yet, we're working on it. But this is kind of like how we think about it. How do we find different things that like, where is each topic at the moment? What is it feeling at the moment? And which use case can you use it for? And then we can actually start answering the questions of like, how do we do data residency? How do we do, where does the data flow? What data should it have? And so on. So we start using these kind of frameworks to figure out what the agents can do in which tool and what they can't. So we can communicate that to the developers also. Developers meaning also the business users that are here. Right? So it's like anybody wanting to do an AI agent, knowing what it can do helps quite a lot. Because I know, for example, one of our Danish colleagues was very quick and wanted to make a fantastic agent in Rovo with Salesforce integration. Problem is nobody has connected our current production Atlassian to Salesforce. There is the Salesforce boxes there, but there is not the Salesforce integration yet. We're working on it. So of course his agent doesn't work if it can't talk to Salesforce, which would have helped him not to write if he had known this. So we're working on making sure that people actually know what is integrated where. And yeah, that's sort of my talk because I was shown that I have time limit. I will go to the one important slide of data safety because I know everybody's here and ready to ask me a bunch of questions about that or Philip about that. So I collected most of the information in one slide. So yeah, thank you everybody and enjoy the rest of today's talks. Yeah, you can ask questions. They're connected, but it can find them by embedding mathematics. They're near each other, so they need to be the same thing. Man, woman, they're kind of linked, same as king and queen. So you can find these in the mathematics and be like, okay, so king is kind of like a man. So what's related to man? Okay, can I connect that to the king again? So that's how it starts thinking about things. So that's how AI finds the answer to you, shortly. We are embedded, and then we do a bunch of other things. So then today, AI agents getting complicated. So now you have all these agents. I mentioned already like 10 different tools during this talk. We're here to talk about Rovo, but like it's good to understand that Atlassian is a small part of your whole IP. It's a big part, hopefully, in long term, but like it's Jira, Confluence, and all the other stuff. And all of it requires controls around it. And all of it requires you to start thinking, okay, how do we actually take care of these? And what do we actually get from each AI vendor, and where are we going with these? For example, the agent logic is over there, but you have to start thinking about, okay, can I get conversational UI with Rovo? Yes, I can. Okay, so Rovo will build conversational UI, and it also has an API I can talk to. It also has a UI where I can like automate things. Okay, so I can find those in interfaces. Rovo also has an agent catalog. It also has templates, so I can easily create more agents. And I can also create registries of different agents and their use cases. Or I can also find security stuff like monitoring logs from one place. Okay, then the question becomes, how do I actually do this across the organization? And then I don't have answers to that yet, we're working on it. But this is kind of like how we think about it. How do we find different things that like, where is each topic at the moment? What is it feeling at the moment? And which use case can you use it for? And then we can actually start answering the questions of like, how do we do data residency? How do we do, where does the data flow? What data should it have? And so on. So we start using these kind of frameworks to figure out what the agents can do in which tool and what they can't. So we can communicate that to the developers also. Developers meaning also the business users that are here. Right? So it's like anybody wanting to do an AI agent, knowing what it can do helps quite a lot. Because I know, for example, one of our Danish colleagues was very quick and wanted to make a fantastic agent in Rovo with Salesforce integration. Problem is nobody has connected our current production Atlassian to Salesforce. There is the Salesforce boxes there, but there is not the Salesforce integration yet. We're working on it. So of course his agent doesn't work if it can't talk to Salesforce, which would have helped him not to write if he had known this. So we're working on making sure that people actually know what is integrated where. And yeah, that's sort of my talk because I was shown that I have time limit. I will go to the one important slide of data safety because I know everybody's here and ready to ask me a bunch of questions about that or Philip about that. So I collected most of the information in one slide. So yeah, thank you everybody and enjoy the rest of today's talks. Yeah, you can ask questions.